People love ComputerShare, DRS, and direct registration of shares, except when a stock trades in a way they don't like. Then, all of a sudden, ComputerShare must be complicit in some sort of crime.
We've seen a few more troubling posts of late too.
We have, unfortunately, there's been some quite specific allegations made against ComputerShare recently in recent weeks, and they stand out, really significantly from other very well-informed commentary.
Okay, so before we move on to the questions, let's just address this directly so there's no ambiguity. Is any of the information or data that we've provided on direct registration or related subjects misleading, incomplete, or otherwise flawed, deliberately or otherwise?
No. The share position data we provide to our clients is completely accurate. We've also answered questions thoroughly and thoughtfully and truthfully, and we continue to stand behind the information we've shared via our FAQs and through these various AMAs. Nothing's changed.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So look, perhaps just useful to remind ourselves, what is it exactly we're trying to achieve here?
That's a good question, Joe. First and foremost, our role in the market is that of a provider of services to our corporate issuers and their shareholders. We have absolutely no interest in hiding things from them or from doing things that are not in their interest. We're a regulated business in the marketplace, and it's worth noting that we're regulated by the SEC, the OCC, and we also have to follow the rules of the exchanges and, of course, of the DTC itself. The allegation that ComputerShare is somehow misreporting data to its clients was disappointing, to say the least, and despite it not being deleted or any of the facts being provided, the expectation was that we'd answer a raft of questions about it. No facts have been provided that have any relevance to ComputerShare whatsoever.
Okay, so look, is there any truth to the idea that ComputerShare is engaging in dishonest reporting practices or somehow cooking the books when reporting data about the take-up of direct registration?
No, there isn't. And no evidence has been provided, just a list of questions for us to answer, which is, really the most frustrating point of this whole exercise. The offensive post has not been deleted. Instead, we've been asked lots of questions. While we're keen to engage with the investor community, no company is going to sit back and simply stand by and engage politely every time untrue and unsubstantiated accusations are made about them. And I really hope this is the first and last time we come across this type of situation. And I really do hope people think twice before making serious allegations in these forums.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Let's take a look at some of the questions, and let's first talk about Gamestop specifically and its quarterly reporting of the direct registration shareholder-related information. So, Paul, can you briefly summarize the broad context in which some of these questions were raised?
Sure, I'll try my best. My assessment, and it really is only my opinion, is that some GameStop investors appear to be frustrated that the number of shareholders and the aggregate number of shares they hold in either DRS or the DSPP format has in effect plateaued over the last 3 quarters. This seems to have caused some investors and commentators to speculate that the system is working against their interests. And the sentiment appears to be what led to the allegations of ComputerShare reporting incorrect figures to GameStop, which is, as I said earlier, completely untrue. Now, some investors are digging into the mechanics of various aspects of the overall market system, and we're not seeking to stop them from doing that, of course. However, they seem to be missing some of the basic principles in how the numbers are calculated. During the most recent 3 or 4 quarters, new direct registrations, or simply shares purchased, have not outpaced deregistrations or simply shares sold or transferred back into the street name environment. And as a result of this, the aggregate numbers, which are calculated on a net basis, has simply flatlined, broadly speaking. In fact, they may have gone backwards ever so slightly during this period of time. So it's easy to see how some investors might misread signals concerning the data if they only see one side of the equation. Obviously, we've seen a lot of people post their purple circles to celebrate their direct registration, but I'd say on the other hand, it's quite rare, particularly in this situation, for an investor to publicly post the fact that they had sold or transferred their shares for whatever reason, which is of course their right to transfer or sell. So the quality of crowdsourced information flow is quite one-sided, focused almost exclusively on the buys to the exclusion of the sells. And on the sell side, that I think involves a lot more guesswork and hunting around. So the crowdsource process will never be as accurate as the actual books and records that we maintain for our company client. So Joe, getting right back to your specific point, we're very comfortable with the data that we report to Gamestop, which in turn Gamestop uses to inform their regulatory filings. These are accurate. Nobody at ComputerShare is cooking the books, and it's potentially damaging when someone falsely claims that we are.
Thanks, Paul. Now, I want to ask you specifically now about the so-called heat lamp theory. It's not a totally new idea, but it seems to have got a bit of traction in some quarters recently. What's your understanding of it? And indeed, is there any validity to it?
Thanks, Joe. It's a good question. I've spent some time reading some of the materials online and listening to some of the online commentary. And broadly, the theory seems to be based on the assumption that a portion of the shares that underpin the DSPP that we at ComputerShare hold via our broker in DTC, that those shares are being used to cover stock loans, which in turn are helping short sellers push down the price of GameStop shares. It's not clear to me exactly what's driving the theory. As we discussed earlier, I think it is completely unsupported by facts, and it in turn misrepresents what ComputerShare does and generally, what we do in this particular area. We don't make securities available for lending, not on the register or through that portion of the DSPP shares that are held through our broker partner. The theory, in my personal and professional opinion, is simply not true. It's not based on credible or robust analysis. It connects dots that have no association with one another, and it draws incorrect conclusions by seeking to tie what may or may not happen in one area of the overall market, in this case, the stock loan market, with ComputerShare's regulated activities in a completely different part, being our role as the transfer agent and DSPP provider. Some commentators are claiming that specific stock loan activity is made possible by ComputerShare with our knowledge or as a result of certain shares being held by our broker to cover this lending activity. This is, again, a false claim and simply not true. We have spoken about stock lending activities many times. Neither ComputerShare nor the brokers it engages lend out shares that are owned by shareholders holding shares via the DSPP. We do not lend shares that are directly registered in investors' names. We've covered this many times, and I hope this is the last we have to really say about this matter.